Hi everybody, and welcome to our second Greenfoot introductory video. Today we're going to look at some drawing commands in Greenfoot. We're going to learn how to draw onto the background of the world, which can be useful. We're going to learn how to draw onto an actor, so you can make your own actors or customize your actors or add text to your actors, etc. So let's take a look here. I made another new scenario. I called it Intro to Graphics. And the first thing I want to do is talk about the world. So the world has one image, or at least one visual image, and it's called the background. Let's open up the code for my world, and let's make that a little bigger. So the first thing I want to do is create an image that I will use for the background of my world. Right now it's blank, and that means that it's actually using an image. It just happens to be a blank image. I like to use objects of class GreenfootImage for this. There's a lot of reasons why you would want to just make an object rather than just starting to draw onto the background of the world. It's good habit, but it also gives you more control. So later on you might want to switch the background images, and this way you would have the objects created and you could just sort of set them back and forth to be the active picture that represents the world. So let's take a look here. I'm going to create an object here. I'm going to call it a private GreenfootImage, and I'm going to call it background. It's not a very creative name. If you had more than one, you would probably want to call it background 1, background 2, background 3, or maybe if you had a game with day and night, you could have night background and day background or something along those lines. But for now, we're just going to have one. In the constructor for world, we're going to tell Greenfoot that we want to use this image for the background. So to do that, I'm going to use a very self-explanatory command called setBackground, and I'm going to set it to background. Now we can't actually compile this quite yet because we haven't actually initialized background. If I do it right now, it's going to tell me that background may not have been initialized. So what I want to do is I want to say background equals new GreenfootImage. Now we need an X and a Y size in here, and currently our world is 600 by 400, which I don't love. So let's make this the same as before. As last example, I'll make it 1200 by 800. And so I'm going to make the background image exactly the same size. Of course, the reason being that I want it to fit perfectly. If you make it bigger or smaller, it will either go off the edge or not make it to the edge, and we don't want either of those things to be the case. And if I compile it now, it'll look exactly the same. Let's go take a look. It's not going to do anything different. Well, it did increase the size of the canvas, but it's not going to change anything because we haven't actually drawn anything on. So the next thing we want to do is to do a drawing command. Now, let me just close this intro to movement so it's not in my way. The background image is the same kind of image as you would have used if you were drawing on actors. There only is one type of Greenfoot image. In order to draw onto those, we need to use commands from the Greenfoot Drawing API, from the GreenfootImage API. So let's go over here, and here we have GreenfootImage. This API is definitely one you're going to want to have open in a web tab when you start working with graphics. Even I have to look back. I've been doing this for many years, and I still have to look back at the GreenfootImage API because I can't remember all this stuff, and it does change a bit over time. At the top here, you can actually see the constructors for GreenfootImage. This was the basic one that we just called. So we created a GreenfootImage by specifying a width and height. Another popular one would be to specify the file name. So if instead of putting 1200 by 800 here, I had put something like back.png, assuming that there was an image called back.png in my images folder, it would set that as the background image. But for now, we're going to use a blank one because I want to show you how to draw stuff. So this is the same thing. It just happens to start off blank instead of importing a file. All right, let's take a look at this API. So we have some methods. Most of them are very self-explanatory. If you read them, even just the short blurb here, you sort of understand how to use them. Clear is as simple as it gets. It will literally clear your whole image and turn the whole thing back to a blank image. Draw image actually allows you to draw a whole other image onto your current image. So if you wanted to sort of stamp things along your image, or if for some reason you wanted to draw one image onto another, it's a very common thing to do. You can just literally specify a second image and the X and Y coordinate where you want to put it onto the new image, and that will draw the image. We have things like draw line, which again does exactly what it sounds like. It draws a line from X1, Y1 to X2, Y2. So you just specify the coordinate, and the description here makes it very obvious. Draw a line from X1, Y1 to X2, Y2. We can draw an oval. We could use this also to draw a circle, because a circle is just an oval with equal with equal width and height, or X and Y radii, whichever way you want to refer to them. Draw polygon's an interesting one because it actually allows you to specify as many points as you want as an array. So that one might be slightly more complicated. Don't worry about that one. Draw rect lets you draw rectangles, etc. Don't worry about shapes. That's a whole other thing. And you can draw strings. This one's really important as well because you can actually use this to put text onto your image. And we'll take a look. We'll do a simple example of that in the next lesson. I'm going to leave text out because it's kind of a whole separate thing. Fill is the easiest command. We're going to do that one first. We'll do that in a minute. Here we have these fill oval, fill polygon, and fill rect, which are the same as the oval, polygon, and rect here, except instead of an outline shape, it's a filled in shape. And there's more stuff here that we don't really need to worry too much about right now. The only other ones we want to worry about right now are set color. Set color is going to be how you tell it what color you want to draw in. So if you think for a second about how things work in Microsoft Paint, if you want to draw a green rectangle, first you choose green, then you draw a rectangle. It's going to be the same thing here. If I want to make, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in my background with the fill command. But if I want it to be anything other than black, I have to specify what color I should fill it with. So you set the color and then you fill it. Let's see what this looks like in action. But again, keep this API around and familiar because you will refer back to it probably numerous times while you're working your way through your project if you choose to draw graphics. All right, so let's pull up this code again. So right here in the constructor for world, I want to draw this so that when the world actually gets, so whatever I do here gets called when I click reset. And I want this to happen when I click reset, not later on when I click run. So I'm going to put it in the constructor. I'm going to say background dot set color. So this allows me to specify a color. There are two ways I can specify a color. The easiest way is by using the predefined colors. So there's stuff like color.red, for example, which would make it red. Let's go take a look at where we would find color if we were interested. So if we go back to the main Greenfoot API page, Greenfoot actually has its own color class. If you're using a version of Greenfoot before 3.1, it used to use something called java.awt.color, which was a little bit more complicated to work with. Now it has its own built-in color. So if I click on this, you'll be able to see a few things. First of all, these static ones here are the sort of preset, easy, ready-to-use colors that you can pick. We've got black, blue, cyan, dark gray, gray, green, light gray, magenta, orange, pink, red, white, and yellow. And then down here we have constructors for creating a color. So there's two constructors for creating a color. One is a red, green, and blue specified color, and one is red, green, blue, and alpha. Alpha would be how see-through it is. So interestingly, this could allow you to draw stuff that was partially see-through by specifying an alpha. An alpha of 0 would be totally invisible. An alpha of 255 would just be there, totally opaque. So you can specify something in the middle. All right, so let's see what this looks like in action. We're going to create a color. Let's go back here. And so instead of saying color.red, which would work, that would use this red color. Rather than that, I will leave this commented out in case you want to use something like that when I share my code with you. But I actually want to create my own color. So what I'm going to do is I'm first of all going to declare the color here. So I'm going to call it my color. I don't know what color I'm going to make. I'll surprise myself. If I was really making a project, though, I'd probably call this something like cool light blue. In fact, let's do that. Let's call this cool light blue, as in it has a nice coolness to it, not that it's popular. Okay, cool. Hold on, let me pull up a color picker here. Give me 1 second. Where's my favorite one? There it is. I'll pull it up here. Okay, so you can search the internet for color pickers. There are lots. If you just click on one, this wasn't actually the one I was looking for, but it's giving you all these codes. What they're actually giving you here There it is, the RGB value. This is what you need. How much red, how much green, how much blue. So let's find a nice cool blue, cool light blue. This one looks good. So it's telling me that the code I need is 153, 230, 255. Any color picker you find online will probably have these values. They're represented in two different ways. Here it is as hexadecimal. Here it is as something called HSL. Don't worry about that one. And here it is as RGB. That's what most, at least at the easier level, if you're not a design pro, most people use RGB colors. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. So let's just grab these values and we will paste them right here. I'm going to say cool light blue equals new color. And I'm going to paste in that exact text from that last one. So now I have a cool light blue color. The reason I save it as an object like this is because this way I can use it again. If I wanted to have a few different drawing colors and be able to sort of switch back and forth between them, it's not ideal to constantly be specifying new colors. It's good to sort of declare this here, initialize it here, and now I have it to use. This really starts to come in handy if you have a lot of colors. It's also a great way to create sort of a color scheme for your program. If you have any sort of design sense, you'll know that the first thing you do when you're trying to create a design is come up with the color scheme. What different colors, you choose colors that will work well together, and then you can start drawing. So this would be where you would do that. You would initialize all of your colors here so that you can use them as you please. Anyway, for now, let's fill in our world with this cool light blue color. So in order to work with it, we set it like I showed before, background.setColor, and I'll just specify cool light blue as my color. Just as a side note, you could also, if you were a little bit lazier, you could do this. This would do exactly the same thing. I do not recommend this because unless you're only going to be doing this once, this color will work. It will set the color, but you'll never have it to use it again. So you won't be able to switch the colors back and forth and be able to use that freely. And it's not ideal to be constantly creating new ones. So I would not recommend doing it that way. This is the best way to do it. All right, so let's go ahead and fill that. So once we've set the color, just like in Paint, when you set the color, then you can use the drawing command. So I'm going to say background.fill. And I don't even have to say anything in the brackets because fill doesn't require any parameters. It just fills the whole screen. And now if I look at this, we have a cool blue square as our background. Okay, so that is the background. When we want to access the background in my world, we have to always remember that the drawing commands involve saying get background, not get image. In actors, it's get image. So if later on in the act method, we wanted to get the image, we could say something like get background dot set color, and then specify a color, and then we could say get background dot fill. This is one way of doing it. I wanted to show this to you because even though it's not the perfect way, because we actually have an object we can deal with instead, but it's not get image when you're inside the background, inside the world. It's get background, and we'll see in the actor later on you have to use get image to get an actor's image. But you could simply say background and background, and the reason we can do this safely, background, yeah, sorry, it's not a method. So we already have an object here, and that is this object that we created at the beginning. We've already set it as the background image, so if we make changes to it, now if I run this, it will be light blue, but when I run it in the act start, it will switch to dark blue. Okay, I'm going to comment that out for now, but I'll leave it there just so you can see it when I share this code with you. Let's talk about actors now. So we're going to make an actor, and we're not going to specify an image. Really important here, don't specify an image. We'll call this drawn actor because I'm not creative, and we'll leave it specified with no image. Now if you try to add one to the world right now, it shows up as a green foot. A green foot means you haven't specified an image for something, and I can run the program and it's still showing there as a green foot. The program's running, it's a green foot. That means there's an actor there, but we didn't bother to specify an image for it, and that just isn't right. So the next thing we need to do is figure out how to specify an image for it. You could do, if you want to keep your project really simple and you're only ever going to use graphics that you download, you can use this set image function. The downside to that is you can't really easily change the image once it's running. If you wanted to do some simple animations, if you wanted to do something like when the player gets hit, he changes to a different graphic that shows that he's been hit. I don't know. Anytime you want to change the graphic, which is a very common thing to do, you probably want to set this up in a way that is drawn, as opposed to using commands, as opposed to using this set image. This set image is a good way to do it when you're getting started, but code is better. So let's talk about how to draw an actor. The first thing I want to make sure that you understand is when you're drawing an actor, you're drawing on a smaller canvas within your world. So you're not actually drawing on the world like you were when you were in the world making drawings. For example, if I go back to my world, and let's say after I fill the background, I say background.set color red. And then I say background.draw line. I don't know, let's give it some random coordinates, 25, 25, 60, 60, 60. That'll draw a little line in the top left corner of my world. Not a very exciting line. Let's run it. There it is. It draws on the background. That is stuck. This is like somebody's painted this onto the back of my world. It does not move. If I want to remove it, I have to sort of clear the world and redraw it. It's like in Microsoft Paint. Once you draw it and you can't edit, undo it anymore, it's just there. It's just part of the image, which can be okay. But if this was supposed to be part of the player that's supposed to move around, it's not ideal to draw it onto the background. When we draw onto an actor, let me just pull up Paint for a second. I had set up something to demo here. Where did Paint go? Oop, I seem to have lost it. I must have closed it by accident. 1 second. Oh no, sorry, that's what it was. It wasn't Paint, it was a Google drawing. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so in this example, I have drawn a background in blue, and I have an actor here. What I want to make it clear is that when you're drawing on an actor, you're actually drawing onto a moving canvas that can move around your screen. An actor itself is a rectangle, or at least is represented by a rectangle. That rectangle will go to whatever location the actor is located in. If you're using transparent imagery, it won't look like a rectangle. It'll look like whatever it is that you've put in. But when you're moving it around, it's like you're moving a whole canvas. So when you're using drawing commands, it's sort of like this. Let's say I drew a triangle onto this. It's sort of like I take this and I group it together. And now this thing can move around. So if this was my drawn player or my drawn enemy projectile, maybe it's a fireball, it's got some cool animations, I don't know, whatever it is, you draw it on a rectangle, but that rectangle is not the background of the world, it's a separate canvas. And this canvas has its own X and Y coordinates. So this up here would be 0, 0 in your world, and this would be your max X and your max Y. But right over here would be 0, 0 when you're drawing on the actor, and right here would be the max X, Y of the actor. So if I said I want this actor to be 100 by 100, just making up numbers now, but if I said I wanted this guy to be 100 by 100, I didn't mean to ungroup you. If you're 100 by 100, then 0 is right here, 0, 0, and 100, 100 is right there. So this would be a smaller canvas with its own coordinate system, and that's what you're doing basically when you're drawing on actors. So let's go see what that looks like. All right, so let's give this its own image just like before. I'm going to make it a private Greenfoot image. I'm going to call it creatively image. I'm also going to add a constructor. Actors do not by default have constructors, and you should generally be adding them. I don't know why they don't have them by default. There is probably a reason for that decision. I'm guessing that the designers at Greenfoot wanted to keep the starter code looking as simple as possible. But there really is a lot of power to be lost if you don't have access to constructors. So let's always make a good habit of adding one. So this is a drawn actor. We don't need any parameters, and that's going to be its constructor. So here I'm going to say that the image equals a new Greenfoot image. And I'll make it a nice, convenient, easy to work with size, 100 by 100. And I'm going to say set image, image. Now set image actually means is an actor command that means the image that's going to represent this actor, me, the drawn actor, is going to represent me in Greenfoot's scenario, is going to be this whatever I specify in here. You can use set image to, for example, animate through different images. You can call this over and over again in the act and go to different images. This command will take whatever Greenfoot image object you put here and will assign it as the object for this actor, as the visual representation of this actor. All right, so let's actually draw something on it. We could do something really simple just to demonstrate that it actually exists. Here, let's make it draw an actor. You'll notice that when I click, it immediately becomes a black square. So this, just like before, is a canvas that I can move around my screen. So let's change it to a color other than black, because black's kind of hard to see. Let's give it our own. So by the way, if you're wondering why it's black, black is the default color. So since I didn't specify a color, the color was black. Let's make a color here. Let's call it light. Let's go with something pink. We'll call it pink. Excitement color. I want something exciting. Exciting pink. So let's make it a bright pink. I'm going to grab my color chooser here again. Did I close it? I may have closed it. 1 second. Bear with me, guys. I'm trying to do. Oh no, it's here. I'm trying to do this all in, well, 2 takes, 1 take. So let's pick a nice bright looking pink color that will show up nice and bright. That looks pretty sort of fluorescent-y. Let's pick that. So, ooh, the red and the blue, red and blue are 255. That's interesting. So I'll grab that color and specify it here. So I'm going to say exciting pink equals new color, and I'll use those colors, and I'm going to say image.set color exciting pink, and now I should have a very, very, very exciting pink square when I add the actor. All right, so before I continue, I do want to show you guys how, in case you haven't figured it out yet, how to make that actor appear without having to add it on manually. The manual way of doing this, in case you haven't seen it, is to hold down the shift key. Just holding down the shift key, you can see the little green foot, and when I click, it will add the object. But that's not ideal. What I actually want it to do is I want it to be right in the middle when the program starts. So I'm going to go back to world for a second here, and in the constructor for world, I'm going to say, let's give this actor a name, private drawn actor pink thing, and then I'm going to say, let's use something shorter than pink thing. Let's call that player, because it's normally going to be your player that you're drawing onto. And I'm going to say player equals new drawn actor, and then I'm going to say add object player, and I want to add it right in the middle of the screen, so I'm going to go with 600, 400. All right, and now if we look, when I click start, it automatically is there. I can restart it and it's waiting for me. I'm going to get rid of this little red line that I drew earlier as well, although I'll just comment it out in case you want to see that code later. All right, so now we have a actor. So far it's just a filled in pink rectangle. Let's give it some eyes and a mouth, and I'm warning you right now, this is not going to be good art. This is going to be bad art. Let's give it some eyes. So let's give it another color. We'll make it blue for eyes, private color eyes blue, and we'll make private color mouth. I think I'm going to go with black, because if I go with red, it's going to look really bad on the pink. If you can't tell, I'm not very good at art. Okay, so we'll go with mouth black, eyes blue, and we got exciting pink already. And let's create these colors. So eyes blue equals new color. Well, this is the red, so let's just give it random values and see what we come up with. Give it a high value for blue. I have no idea what this color is going to look like. I'm just making it up as we go along. And for mouth black, let's go with something that's like a dark gray. I'll use the color picker for that one because I don't know how to make a dark gray. Evidently, neither does the color picker. Not a very good color picker, Mr. Cohen. Oh, here we go, right in the middle. Perfect. Okay, so we'll go with something gray. Oh, I know, I remember now. Gray, it means it has the same value for red, green, and blue. So that's convenient. Let's go with something that's fairly dark. That looks pretty good. 51, 51, 51. I did know that putting them all the same is going to do that because we do that in a grade 12 project. But anyway, so we'll call this mouth black equals new color. All right, and now let's draw it. So far what I did here is I just sort of set the color and filled it. And that's okay, but it's not really the place to do this. And when you're going to make a whole bunch of drawing commands, it's probably best to make a separate method for it. So I'm going to go down here at the bottom and I'm going to do private. Let me just move this up a little. Private void draw me. So this is a method that's going to do the drawing to create this actor. And I'm going to copy this stuff from here and put it here. And over here, I'm just going to say to call draw me. One of the advantages of doing this is this may become a dynamic method. For example, if you were making a health bar, every time the health changes, the way you draw it changes a little bit. So there will be some variables involved and things would change a little bit. So it's good to have it in its own separate method. You can call that method from the constructor. Later on, you could call the same method from act, and you could, it gives you a lot of flexibility and it keeps your code organized. So set color pink and fill. Then I want to set it to eyes blue. And I want to draw some ovals. So I'm going to say image.drawOval. Now I'm going to have to guess. I'm going to go look at the API here so I don't have to guess. Let's go over to Greenfoot's API. Go to GreenfootImage. And for draw oval, if I click on it, I get the full description here. It says, draw an oval bounded by the specified rectangle with the current drawing color. So bounded by the specified rectangle means it's going to fit inside. If this was the rectangle, the circle would fit inside it. I know I'm terrible with my little fingers here, but it's a rectangle that would fit tight as can be around the circle. So let's try drawing that now. It says I need an X and a Y. So that's the upper left corner of the oval to be drawn. It actually is that's kind of misleading because it's actually the upper left corner of the bounding rectangle. Just to make you understand what a bounding rectangle is, let me just pull up that Google drawing for a second. If I drew a circle in here, okay, let me just see if I can make this fit perfectly. Not quite. Do you get the idea? If I draw a circle in here, the bounding rectangle is the rectangle here. That is the bounding rectangle. And the X and Y coordinate is actually this coordinate right here where my mouse is. It's the top left-hand corner. So that's the X and the Y. And then the height and the width are pretty self-explanatory. It's the full diameter, not just the radius. All right, so let's go back here. So we need an X and Y. Now if we look at sort of our... can't look at it, but if you think about the fact that it's a square, we probably want the first circle to be in the upper left-hand quadrant and pick out some values here. So I probably want that at about, let's say, an X value of 20, a Y value of 20, a height of 15, and a width of 15. Let's see what that looks like. I really don't know. But if we go over here, we should see it. Oh, that's not bad. Now, I actually wanted to fill this in. So if you remember, to make it a fill in, the methods were called the same thing, except it's now called a fill oval. And now it's actually a filled in oval. The drawing is not perfect for some reason. Size by 20, 20, height of 15, 15. I'll work that out after. Let's just continue. And I already have the... I don't have to set the color again because it's already set to blue. I'm going to say image.fillOval. And we'll go with the other side, which is an X value of 80, a Y value still of 20, and the size should be the same. So let's see how that looks. Evidently, oh, okay, I know what I did wrong. It's 20, that means it's starting at 20. So this one should be ending 20 away, so it's actually 35. So this should be 65. If that made no sense, don't worry. I'm just figuring out how far this should be away from the edge, how big it is. It still doesn't look quite right. It's 15 by 15. Just look at the API. It says the width. Yeah, that should be. Maybe it's not off. Maybe it is right. I think it's just me. Okay, let's just move on. So there we have the eyes, and now we're going to draw the mouth. In the mouth, I'm just going to draw a series of lines right here, because one line probably wouldn't look good. So I'm actually going to use a for loop. Let's just set I to where I actually want. So the I is going to control, why don't I just call it Y, because it's going to actually be my Y value, because I want this to. And by the way, you should never call it Y. I call it YY because Y is actually a hidden variable, and you can run into some strange problems if you call it Y. So as long as YY is less than, okay, let's say we start it at, so just so you know, when you're looking at this canvas, 0, 0 is right up here in the top left. So I want a position right there, and I want Y coordinates going from about there to there so I can draw a few lines. So I'm going to guess that this is about 2/3 of the way down, and I'm going to call this 66 and see what happens. So I'll say for int Y equals 0, Y is less than 60, no, sorry, int Y equals 66, Y is less than, say, 71, that's I think 5 lines. And then YY plus plus, and then I'm going to use a drawing command here, and I'm going to say draw line from, well, let's take a look. We want to go from, well, it's 100 by 100. We probably want to start at about, 20, and so x of 20, y of yy, going to x of 80, y of yy. And let's see if I did that right. Nope. Draw line int, cannot find symbol. What did I do wrong? So remember I said I always check the API. Let's see what I did wrong here. Draw line. Oh, I know what I did. I forgot to specify the image. Image dot, there we go. All right, let's see if I did that right. There we go. I did forget to specify the color, but I think I got the mouth in the right place. So we'll set the color here, image.set color black, mouth black. It's actually more like gray, but let's just leave that. There we go. Now I have a gray. Actually, that looks terrible. Maybe I should use a, whatever. Okay, so there you go. And now this doesn't do anything, but this character, when I move it, it all moves with it. So all the stuff that I drew onto that little canvas is now moving with me around the world. Okay, I think that's already up to over 25 minutes, so I'm going to call it there. I'm going to add some more details to this in my next little mini lesson. Hopefully you found some stuff in here handy. Your questions are always welcome. Please feel free to pop by my office hour, send me an email, or even share a project with me to show me what you're working on. I'd love to help you, give you feedback, answer your questions, anything I can do to support you while you're both learning Greenfoot on your own with some support from me, and also starting to think about and working on your final game. Until next time, stay safe and see you soon.